Lara. I said her name before I even realized I was speaking. She had been standing by the floor-to-ceiling window of her office, her back to me, watching the city below like she owned it. Which, technically, she did. Or at least the 12 floors we were standing in. She turned slowly. She always moved like that. Like the world had all the time it needed to catch up to her. "I have a question," I said. And she looked at me with those dark eyes that never gave anything away and said, "You always do, Bruna." So I asked it. The question I had been carrying for 3 months like a stone in my chest. The question I told myself was just a joke. Something light. Something to fill the silence of an awkward Friday afternoon before the holiday weekend. I asked it like it meant nothing. "Who stole your heart, Lara? Because whoever she is, she ruined you for every conversation that doesn't involve her." There was a silence. The kind of silence that changes the shape of a room. And then Lara Lima, CEO, untouchable. The woman who once told an entire boardroom no without blinking, looked at me quietly. "You did," she said. I don't know how long I stood there. I don't know if I was breathing. I only know that everything I thought I understood about the last 3 months rearranged itself in the space between one heartbeat and the next. And I need to tell you how we got there. If you want to hear uncensored, too hot for YouTube stories, check out my Patreon in the description. I came to Elevate Solutions 2 years ago as a senior communications strategist. It wasn't a dream job. It was a smart job. There's a difference. Elevate was the kind of company that got written up in Forbes and made its employees feel like they were part of something bigger. The kind of company that had meditation rooms and cold brew on tap and still somehow expected you to answer emails at 11 at night. Lara Lima built it from scratch. That's what everyone said. Over and over, like a legend you eventually stop hearing because the words have stopped meaning anything. She built it from scratch. She had a vision. She doesn't compromise. I heard it so many times before I actually met her that by the time I walked into my first executive briefing, I had already decided I wouldn't be impressed. I wasn't. Not at first. She was precise and focused and completely indifferent to the fact that 3 people in the room were visibly nervous around her. She asked sharp questions. She cut through presentations with the kind of efficiency that should have felt cold, but somehow didn't. She had this way of looking at whoever was speaking, really looking, not the performative attention of someone waiting for their turn to talk. And it made you feel like the thing you were saying actually mattered. I noticed that. I told myself it was a leadership technique. After that first meeting, my colleague Diana caught up with me in the hallway. "So," she said, "what do you think?" "She's effective," I said. Diana laughed. "That's one word for it." For the first 6 months, Lara and I were professional in the way that you are with someone whose calendar you occasionally share and whose name you copy on important emails. She ran the company. I ran campaigns. Our worlds overlapped at the edges. I thought that was how it would stay. Then the Morrison account happened. It was a crisis. A client had posted something catastrophically tone-deaf on social media on a Thursday afternoon, and by Friday morning, the story had caught fire. I was the one who drafted the response strategy. I stayed at the office until 2 a.m. building the containment plan, and when I submitted it, I wasn't sure it was good enough, but it was the best I had. At 7 the next morning, Lara knocked on my office door. I looked up, half asleep, cold coffee in hand. She said, "The Morrison team approved the plan. It's working." "Good," I said. She paused, and then she said, "It was excellent work, Bruna." Not good job, not nice one. Excellent work. Said with the same directness she used for everything. No performance, no softening, no corporate warmth. Just the truth of it, delivered plainly. I don't know why that hit me the way it did. I went home, showered, slept 4 hours, and told myself it was just professional respect. That's what it was. That was all it was. The thing about Lara Lima was that she didn't try to be interesting. That was the problem. The people who try, who arrive in a room already performing their most magnetic version of themselves, they're easy to catalog. You see them coming. You can prepare. Lara didn't arrive anywhere. She was just suddenly present, and presence was the only word for what she had. Not charisma, not charm, something quieter than that, and somehow more difficult to dismiss. After the Morrison situation, Lara started including me in smaller meetings, strategic sessions, the kind of rooms where things got decided before the bigger rooms found out. I told myself it was because of the crisis response, that it was purely professional, that she was using me the same way she used every capable person around her, efficiently and without sentiment. And then we ended up in the elevator together one evening when the rest of the office had already gone home. It was a Wednesday. I remember because I had been annoyed all day about a vendor call that had gone sideways, and I was still carrying that low hum of frustration when I stepped into the elevator and found her already there. She looked at me. "Bad day?" she asked. "Mediocre day," I said. "Which is worse?" Something moved at the corner of her mouth. Not quite a smile, but something. "Mediocre days are the ones that accumulate," she said. "Bad days at least leave a mark." I looked at her. "That's surprisingly dark." "I'm surprisingly dark," she said. And then the elevator opened, and she walked out, and I stood there for a second before following, because something in my chest had shifted about half an inch to the left, and I didn't know what to do with that. I told Diana about it over lunch the next day. "She's just interesting," I said, objectively, as a person. Diana stirred her coffee. "Uh-huh." She said something about mediocre days that was actually kind of profound. "Uh-huh. Stop doing that." Diana looked at me. "I'm not doing anything." I went back to my desk and thought about it more than I should have. Over the next few weeks, something shifted in the frequency of our contact. Small things. She would stop by my office with questions she could have sent in an email. I would find myself crafting those emails more carefully than necessary. She had a habit of taking her coffee outside to the terrace on clear days at around 10 in the morning, and I found myself knowing that, which meant I had been paying attention in a way I hadn't authorized myself to pay attention. One morning she asked me what I was reading. I had a book on my desk, a collection of essays about cities, urban design, the invisible systems that make places work or fail. "It sounds like a dissertation," she said, turning it over to read the back. "It kind of is, but the interesting kind." She handed it back. Her fingers brushed mine. Half a second. Not even. "Can I borrow it when you're done?" "Sure," I said. She left. I looked at the book in my hands and thought, this is nothing. This is two colleagues being collegial. This is a completely normal professional interaction that millions of people have every single day, and none of them spiral about it. I slept terribly that night. Here is what nobody tells you about working for someone you are trying very hard not to have feelings for. Every ordinary moment becomes a test. A meeting is not just a meeting. A hallway conversation is not just a hallway conversation. An email signed with her name is a thing you read twice, even when you tell yourself you only read it once. I started noticing details I had no business noticing. The way Lara held her pen between her fingers when she was listening, not writing, just holding. The way some people need something in their hands to think. The specific tone her voice dropped to when she was being serious about something versus when she was being serious as a management technique. The fact that she had a small scar on her left hand, just below the knuckle, that she never explained and I never asked about. I noticed all of it. And I told myself that I noticed things about everybody. That I was an observant person by nature. That it was a professional asset. I believed that lie for about 6 weeks. The moment it stopped working was a Tuesday afternoon in October. We had been in a strategy session that ran 2 hours over schedule. By the time the room cleared, It was past 7, and the office had that quiet, amber-lit feeling it gets when most people have gone home, and the building relaxes into itself. Laura and I were the last two in the conference room. She was going back through her notes. I was pretending to check my phone. We had been in the same room for 3 hours, and I was aware of exactly where she was sitting relative to me in a way that I found embarrassing. "You pushed back on the media spend projection," she said, without looking up. "In the second half of the meeting. You were right. Thank you. You hesitated before you did it." I looked up. "I was reading the room," I said. She looked at me then. Directly, the way she did when she had decided to say something true. "Don't do that," she said. "Don't read rooms. Don't shrink yourself to fit a room. You were right. You knew it. The hesitation cost you 30 seconds and it shouldn't have." I held her gaze. I had been told things like this before, by good managers, by mentors, by people who believed in directness. It wasn't the content that undid me. It was the look on her face when she said it. Like she had been watching me for long enough to notice the specific shape of the way I made myself smaller. Like she had filed it away somewhere, and decided today was the day to say something, like it mattered to her. I looked down at the table. "I'll keep that in mind," I said. She went back to her notes. I sat there for another 3 minutes pretending to look at my phone and tried very hard to remember what the word professional meant. After that, I tried to create distance. I started scheduling myself out of optional meetings. I answered her emails with shorter responses. When she came by my office, I made sure I always had somewhere to be in 15 minutes. It didn't help. Because the thing about distance is that it only works if the other person doesn't notice. Laura noticed. She didn't say anything at first, but I caught her watching me once, a quick glance from across the open office. And there was something in it I didn't know how to name. Not hurt, not confusion. Something more patient than that. Like she was waiting for something I hadn't decided yet. The day it became unbearable was a Friday in November. We were at a company event at a rooftop venue in Midtown. The whole team. Casual, end of quarter. Someone had hired a DJ who was playing songs that were slightly too loud for actual conversation. I was talking to Diana near the bar when I saw Laura across the room. She was laughing. I had never seen her laugh like that. Full and unguarded, her head tilting back slightly, her whole face opened up by it. She was talking to Priya from product, and whatever Priya had said had caught her off guard, and she was laughing in a way that had nothing to do with management or performance, or the version of herself she carried into conference rooms. I stood there with my drink and felt something come loose in my chest. Diana said something. I didn't hear it. "Bruna?" "Sorry," I said. "What?" Diana followed my gaze. Then she looked back at me. She didn't say anything. She just turned back to her drink with an expression I refused to interpret. I went home early. I told myself I was tired. I sat on my couch in the dark and had a conversation with myself that I had been postponing for weeks. It wasn't a comfortable conversation. At the end of it, I knew exactly what the problem was, and I had absolutely no idea what to do about it. But before we continue, if you made it this far, it's because something in this story hit a nerve. That feeling of watching someone from across a room and not knowing what to do with what you see. Of knowing something you're not ready to say out loud. So hit the like button right now. It takes 1 second, and it genuinely helps this channel keep bringing stories like this one to you. And if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe now and ring the bell. That way YouTube lets you know when a new story drops here. Now tell me in the comments, have you ever tried to convince yourself that what you were feeling was nothing, only to have one single moment prove you completely wrong? Type it for me. I read every single one. And tell me too, what city are you watching from? I'll mark it with a heart. Now, back to Bruna. December arrived, and brought with it the particular cruelty of holiday parties, year-end reviews, and the kind of enforced closeness that comes when a company tries to manufacture warmth. Elevate's holiday dinner was held on a Thursday evening at a restaurant in the West Village. Long tables, good wine, the kind of lighting that makes everyone look like a better version of themselves. I sat near the middle. Lara sat at the head of the table, because she was Lara, and that was where Lara sat. I spent most of the dinner performing normalcy with moderate success. And then, near the end of the night, she moved. Quietly. The way she did everything. Someone had taken the chair beside me to drag it to another conversation, and there was a gap. And Lara simply settled into it, as if she had always intended to end up there. She had a glass of red wine she wasn't drinking much of. "You've been avoiding me?" she said. Not a question. A statement. Delivered with the same even tone she used for everything. "I've been busy," I said. "You've been busy at specifically the moments when I might run into you." I looked at the table. "Lara, you don't have to explain it," she said. "I'm not asking you to. I just want to say something, and then I'll leave it alone." I waited. She turned her wine glass once, slowly, between her fingers. "I know what this company looks like from the outside," she said. "I know what I look like from the outside. And I know that working for someone and feeling anything complicated about them is a situation with no clean edges." I still couldn't look at her. "I'm not saying this to make you uncomfortable," she continued. "I'm saying it because I've spent 6 months being more careful than I've ever been in my life, and I'm fairly certain I've been terrible at it." At that, I looked up. She was looking at the table, too. Her jaw was slightly tense, the only sign, ever, that she was holding something back. "I have never met anyone who challenges me without trying to," she said quietly. "Who tells the truth in a room without performing it. Who makes silence feel like something worth staying inside of." I said nothing. "You make me want to be less certain about everything," she said, "which is the most terrifying thing anyone has done to me in about 8 years. The table around us was loud. Someone was doing a toast 2 seats down. Nobody was paying attention to us. I looked at her. She looked at me. And I felt everything I had spent 3 months organizing neatly into denial simply stop. Not with drama. Not with a declaration. Just stopped. Like a door I had been holding closed, finally running out of the resistance it needed. "I don't know what to do with any of this," I said. "Neither do I," she said. "But I stopped pretending I don't feel it about 3 months ago. I thought I'd let you catch up." I laughed. Something small, involuntary, that surprised me. She smiled. That real one. The unheld version. The one I had seen from across a rooftop and not been able to forget. "So," she said. "So," I said. Outside, New York was cold and lit up and entirely indifferent to the fact that the whole arrangement of my interior life had just shifted on its axis. And the strange thing, the thing I have thought about many times since, was that I had spent 3 months believing that Lara Lima was the untouchable one. The one with all the certainty. The one who moved through the world without second-guessing herself. I had made her into something solid and immovable and armored, because that was easier than seeing what was actually there. What was actually there was a woman who had been just as afraid as I was, who had been holding something carefully for months, who had, without either of us naming it, been changed. She wasn't the immovable one. I had just never looked closely enough to see that. I want to tell you what happened next, because it wasn't what I expected. I expected, maybe, that I would be the one who figured it out first. That I would be the one who finally said something clear, did something definitive, chose something. I had spent 3 months thinking of myself as the person in motion in this story, the one building toward a decision, the one who needed to land somewhere. But here is what actually happened. 2 days after that dinner, Laura called me into her office on a Monday morning. I thought it was about a campaign. She closed the door. She stood by her desk, not sitting, standing, which I had learned meant she was saying something that required steadiness. And she looked at me with that direct, undeflected gaze, and she said, "I need to tell you something that I should have said 3 months ago, and the reason I didn't is that I was afraid." I looked at her. Laura Lima, afraid. She said it like a fact she had just finished making peace with. "I've built this company on certainty," she said, "on knowing what I want and moving toward it without hesitation. It's worked. It's also cost me things I didn't always realize I was paying until later." She paused. "I kept waiting for the right time to say something to you. The right moment when it would be clean and appropriate and wouldn't complicate your position here or put you in a difficult place. And then I realized I was using the right time, the same way I use everything, as a way to control a situation I was actually scared of." The city was quiet behind the glass. That high, gray December light that makes New York look like a photograph of itself. "I'm not scared of you," she said. "I'm scared of how much I want things to be simple between us when nothing about this situation is simple." I crossed the room. I don't know when I decided to do that. I was standing by the door, and then I wasn't. And then I was close enough to see the exact moment she stopped bracing for whatever she thought was coming. I took her hand. Just that. Her fingers were cold, the way they always were. I had noticed that once, and then never stopped noticing it. And they closed around mine with something that felt like relief and terror in equal measure. "You told me once not to shrink myself to fit a room," I said. She looked at me. "I think you've been doing the same thing," I said. "Just in a different direction. Making yourself larger so nobody can see where you're actually soft." Something crossed her face that I had never seen there before. Not the CEO, not the untouchable, not the woman who could silence a boardroom with a look. Just Laura, uncertain, present, here. "I don't know how to do this," she said quietly. "I know how to run a company. I know how to build things. I don't know how to be this with someone." "Neither do I," said. "That's not reassuring." "No," I agreed, "but I think it might be honest." She looked down at our hands. Then she looked up at me. And I understood in that moment what the last 3 months had actually been about. Not me figuring out how to want her, but both of us separately dismantling the versions of ourselves that we had decided were necessary. Her certainty, my smallness, the careful arrangements we had made to be safe. None of it had been armor. All of it had been distance. And standing there, in that gray December light, with her hand in mine and the city going on outside like none of this was remarkable, we were, for the first time, just 2 people, without the title, without the distance, without the performance of who we had decided to be. I was not the uncertain one who needed to find her footing. She was not the immovable one who needed nothing. We had gotten each other exactly backward. And somehow, in getting it wrong for 3 months, we had gotten it right. People ask me sometimes what it felt like when I finally stopped pretending. I tell them it felt like putting down something heavy that I had carried so long I'd stopped noticing the weight. It didn't feel like winning. It felt like being accurate, finally, about what was true. Laura once told me that the most dangerous assumption a person can make is to decide they already know the shape of someone. That certainty about people is usually just a story you're too comfortable to revise. I think about that a lot. I think about how wrong I was about her, and how wrong she was about herself. And I think about that joking question I asked on a Friday afternoon. The one I told myself meant nothing. The one I threw into a silence without expecting it to land anywhere real. She answered it simply, without armor, without calculation. 2 words, and the whole story changed. If this story touched something in you, If you've ever stood at the edge of something real and pretended it was nothing, write in verso in the comments. That's how I know you made it here with me. And if you want to stay in this journey of stories that move something in you, click on the video appearing on your screen right now. A big kiss, and until our next story. If you want to hear uncensored, too hot for YouTube stories, check out my Patreon in the description.